This is best HFY stories humanity. Fuck yeah.
The dock stretched into the fog like the skeletal arm of something long dead. Rust had claimed every surface, eating through steel until the beams resembled brittle bones rather than the framework of a once proud station. Emergency lights blinked fitfully across the derelict port, throwing sickly yellow pools onto the floor that only emphasized the emptiness. The air reeked of oxidized metal damp insulation and something older like the residue of forgotten dreams. Max Carter stood before the cracked observation window of the auction pavilion, hands buried deep in the pockets of his threadbare jacket. His reflection drawn where a man too young to look that old stared back at him. Beyond the glass, ghostly silhouettes of broken cranes swayed in the windless void. The cranes had once lifted entire starships into their berths. Now they moved only when the station groaned, drifting without purpose like the rib cages of ancient leviathans. Inside the auction hall wasn't much better. Grime streaked the walls, dust collected in the corners, and the low hum of failing generators filled the silence. A single clerk occupied the desk at the far end, seated behind a scratched plastic barrier. The glow of an ancient terminal painted her gaunt face in pallid blue. Her eyes were bloodshot hollow pits that suggested sleepless nights and decades of monotony. Max walked across the uneven tiles, boots echoing in the cavernous emptiness. The sound reminded him uncomfortably of walking across a mausoleum. This place wasn't a market, it was a graveyard for ships, for fortunes, for people who gambled and lost everything to the void. He reached the desk and slid something small and weightless across the counter. A token, plastic and crudely marked. $1, he said with a faint smile, trying to inject some levity into the air that felt heavier with each passing second. The clerk didn't smile back. She didn't even glance at him. Her scanner hummed past over the token and chirped to confirm. "Transaction complete," she muttered, voice flat. "Hangar 17 at your own risk. Whatever you find, it's yours." Max raised an eyebrow. No change. That earned him a reaction. She looked up for the first time, her gaze sharp and weary all at once. "With luck like yours," she whispered, "the only change will be whether you come back alive." Then she dropped a heavy key onto the counter. It landed with a dull metallic thud that reverberated like a death knell. Max picked up the key. Its edges had been worn smooth by countless hands before his. How many had stood here clutching this same piece of metal, convinced they'd struck fortune? How many had walked away? How many hadn't? The station shuddered. Somewhere distant, an explosion rippled through the failing structure. Alarms began to wail, faint and distorted, like the cries of ghosts echoing down forgotten corridors. The clerk's expression didn't change. "Better hurry," she said. "That came from near Sector 17. Max nodded, silently pocketed the key and turned toward the doors. His boots struck the grated walkway with a hollow rhythm. The further he went, the more it felt like walking into the throat of a dying beast. Steel supports groaned above him, showering flakes of rust. A section of the walkway collapsed into the void, disappearing with a metallic scream that faded into silence. He kept moving. The token still sat in his pocket, absurdly light, as though mocking him with its worthlessness. $1. That was all it took to own Hangar 17, to own whatever remained inside, to own perhaps his own death. The hangar doors rose before him at last, looming like the gates to an underworld. Massive, rust-eaten, sealed shut for who knew how many decades. Patches of corrosion spread across their surface like tumors. Numbers that once boldly declared 17 now clung like fading scars, eroded almost beyond recognition. Max took the key from his pocket. It was heavy compared to the token, heavy compared to the very idea of ownership. He slid it into the lock. The mechanism resisted, gears grinding with the protest of disuse. With effort, he forced it to turn, each click echoing like gunfire. He pushed against the doors with his shoulder. They gave way, reluctantly shrieking as rusted hinges fought back. The sound scattered birds roosting in the rafters, their wings flapping desperately as if they too wanted nothing to do with what lay beyond. Stale air rushed out to meet him. It carried the scent of dust oil long dried into grime and the faint, unmistakable tang of decay. The walkway behind him groaned, then collapsed entirely, a section breaking free and tumbling into darkness. Max lunged forward through the threshold, heart hammering, as destruction chased at his heels. He stumbled into darkness. A silence deeper than any he had known enveloped him, pressing against his ears. For a moment he hesitated. Then he activated the wrist light strapped to his arm. A narrow beam cut through the black. It revealed piles of broken containers stacked like forgotten tombstones, scaffolding collapsed into tangled skeletons, and at the far end the silhouette of something massive, something that had once dominated the stars. Max froze his breath, catching. Half collapsed, scarred, battered beyond recognition, the vessel still exuded presence. Even in ruin it radiated power. The hull bore scorch marks from battles long past. Its size dwarfed everything else in the hangar. A warship, an ancient relic of some forgotten campaign. His voice escaped as a whisper, "Holy shit." He lifted the token from his pocket, turning it in the beam of light. All this junk for $1, deal of the century. But the words didn't ease the chill crawling across his skin. Something moved at the edge of his vision, a shadow separating itself from shadows. He spun light sweeping wildly across the hangar. Nothing, only dust motes swirling in the disturbed air. Yet the sensation persisted, the feeling of being watched, of not being alone. His instincts, honed from years of salvage work, screamed at him. Somewhere in the darkness, metal scraped against metal. Max tightened his grip on the cutter at his belt. The silence seemed to lean closer, to whisper in his ear, "This wasn't yours to claim." And deep in the black, something stirred. The light from Max's wrist lamp was weak, a pale cone swallowed by the vastness of the hangar. He swept it left, then right, and the shadows seemed to retreat, only to gather more densely in the corners. Each pile of scrap looked like a crouching beast. Each length of scaffolding groaned as if ready to spring. He forced himself to breathe evenly, the sound echoing through his helmet mic. Salvage was about patience, about ignoring nerves. If you let your imagination dictate what you saw in the dark, you'd never crawl into the half-collapsed mines, the flooded holds, the irradiated wrecks where fortunes still hid. Yet this was different. This wasn't just a wreck. The air itself felt heavy, oppressive. His lungs filled reluctantly, the recycled atmosphere, tasting stale as though it had been trapped for centuries. A layer of dust blanketed everything, disturbed only where his boots pressed down, leaving trails like footprints on the moon. He edged forward, sweeping his light across the looming shape at the far end. The warship. Closer now, its details emerged. Plating that should have gleamed was dulled and mottled with corrosion. Entire sections of hull had collapsed inward, exposing jagged ribs of internal framework. Antennas hung broken, dangling like snapped bones. One gun battery, long dormant, was fused in a half-raised position as if frozen mid-defiance. No registry markings remained. No flag, no insignia to declare who had built it or why it had been abandoned. It was as if history itself had scrubbed the vessel from memory. "Ghost ship," Max muttered under his breath. He felt the temptation to climb aboard immediately to claim whatever treasures lay within. But experience warned him rushing was death. He needed to catalog, to map, to know the terrain. He turned in a slow circle, examining the rest of the hangar. Towers of discarded machinery reached toward the rafters. Cargo loaders, broken mech frames, engines stripped for parts but left to rot when the station decayed. Crates stood like monuments, their labels faded beyond recognition. Somewhere deep in the stacks, metal shifted. Max's light snapped toward the sound. Nothing, only shadows. Still, the prickling at the back of his neck grew sharper. He whispered, "Hello." His voice echoed through the cavern, bouncing back at him like mockery. No answer. The beam swept over a collapsed scaffolding. He began climbing each step, clanging in the silence. Halfway up, the supports shifted, screeching protest. He froze, breath shallow, before continuing more carefully. At the top, he had a better vantage point. The warship's main hatch was visible, siled, scarred, its locking mechanism buried under centuries of grime. He could see access panels hanging loose, like the gaping mouths of corpses. A grin tugged at his lips despite the dread. If even a fraction of the ship's systems remained intact, this could change his life. Sellable tech, rare alloys, forgotten weapons caches, all possible. But then came another sound. A scrape. Deliberate, measured. Max whipped his light around. This time he caught it, movement in the corner. Not random shifting, something detaching itself from stillness. He slid his hand to his cutter, the compact plasma blade humming as it activated. Its glow was pitiful against the expanse of darkness. Anyone home, he called again, louder now, as much a warning as a question. At first there was only silence, then a dull red glow blinked into life. It came from the shadows at floor level, a single optical sensor awakening after decades of sleep. The glow fixed on him. Max's pulse spiked. He recognized it immediately. He'd salvaged scraps from machines like it before, security automatons, old models built to patrol and defend. But he had never seen one intact, never one still active. The automaton stepped forward. Its servos ground and whined with age, the sound like bones cracking. Dust fell from its joints. Still, its movements retained a mechanical precision unsettling in their inevitability. It didn't attack, not yet. Instead, its voice rasped from a broken speaker, distorted by time registration required. Identifying intruder. The words made Max's stomach lurch. "I'm not an intruder," he said quickly, keeping his stance neutral. "I bought this place. $1 whole. Got the receipt." The machine tilted its head slightly, as though trying to process the absurdity. Before it could respond, something shifted in his peripheral vision. Max spun. A figure emerged from behind a stack of containers, humanoid, slender, moving with predatory grace. His light-caught blue skin eyes gleaming with suspicion and facial markings like living tattoos. "A woman, not human." "You shouldn't be here," she said, voice low, tense, almost vibrating with warning. "Leave. Now." Max tightened his grip on the cutter. "I paid for access. Hangar 17. Clerk gave me the key. This is mine." The automaton's eye brightened, its servos humming as it adjusted position. The woman stepped closer. Her expression was fierce, her gaze unyielding. "They sell this hangar every few months," she said bitterly. "Every buyer dies. How much is your life worth, human? More than $1, I hope." The automaton's voice cut in louder, more insistent. Security protocols triggered. 4 minutes until hostile classification. The woman's eyes flicked to the machine, then back to Max. Her jaw tightened. Max's heart hammered. He realized he wasn't facing simple salvage anymore. He was standing in the jaws of something alive, an ancient system designed to test, to judge, to kill if necessary. The warship behind them loomed like a predator waiting to wake, and the countdown had already begun. The automaton's eye pulsed in rhythmic flashes, each blink a reminder of time slipping away. Its grinding voice repeated the warning, distorted yet unmistakable. 3 minutes, 42 seconds until hostile classification. Max steadied his breathing. He had salvaged wrecks filled with radiation leaks, drifted through asteroid fields in barely functioning skiffs, even bartered with pirates who would gut you for half a ration, but nothing compared to the cold certainty emanating from this machine. And then there was her. The blue-skinned woman stood before him like a living apparition. The faint glow of his wrist lamp caught the intricate markings across her face patterns that shimmered faintly like liquid silver. Tattoos, or something biological. He couldn't tell. Her eyes reflected the beam like those of a nocturnal predator, unblinking and sharp. "You need to leave," she repeated, softer this time, though the steel in her voice remained. Max gestured toward the collapsed warship behind them. "Leave after I bought this hangar for $1 after I nearly got killed just getting through the door. No, lady, I'm not leaving." Her lips curved not into a smile, but something colder. "They all say that, and they all end the same way. Dead." The automaton shifted gears, whining as it took a deliberate step closer. Dust fell in a cascade from its shoulders. Max raised his cutter instinctively. The woman's eyes narrowed. "Don't. If you strike it, you accelerate the protocol. You'll be dead before you draw a second breath." Max clenched his jaw. "Then maybe you should tell me how to stop this thing." 2 minutes, 59 seconds, the machine droned. The woman sighed, a sound heavy with years of weariness. She stepped into the cone of his light fully now, and Max got his first good look. She wasn't draped in scavenger rags or pirate leathers. Her attire was simple but sturdy, dark, close-fitting fabric reinforced at the joints, designed for movement rather than ornament. Her posture was military weight, balanced hands, relaxed but ready eyes scanning constantly. "You've triggered the security protocol," she said. "There's only one way to avoid being shredded." Max arched an eyebrow. "And that is?" Her gaze flicked toward the warship. "Survive the ship's judgment." He almost laughed, but the sound caught in his throat. "Judgment, it's a pile of junk. Half of it's collapsed. The other half is dust. Don't mistake appearances for truth." Her voice was quiet, almost reverent. "This vessel isn't dead. It sleeps. And when it wakes, it will decide whether you live or die." Max stared at her, incredulous. "What are you, its priestess?" That finally earned him a reaction, a bitter, humorless laugh. "No, I'm its prisoner." The words hit him harder than expected. "Prisoner. I've been bound to this ship for 17 years. She lifted her wrist, and in the faint light, he saw a thin band of metal embedded beneath her skin, glowing faintly with dormant circuitry. "I swore an oath. Until its mission ends, I cannot leave, not even if I wanted to." The automaton's eye glowed brighter, bathing them both in crimson. 2 minutes, 12 seconds. Max shook his head. "Okay, let's say I believe you. Why hasn't it killed you yet?" Her gaze dropped for a moment, shadow crossing her features. "Because it remembers me. From before." The way she said it sent a chill down his spine. Another tremor rattled the hangar, shaking loose flakes of rust from the ceiling. One panel cracked ominously overhead. Max instinctively stepped back, eyes darting upward. "Stay close to me," the woman ordered. "Why should I?" "Because without me, you'll be a corpse before that countdown ends." Max hesitated. His instincts screamed not to trust her. Every salvage law, every scrap of common sense said she was part of the trap. And yet, she had the look of someone who had seen this before, survived it, endured it. "Fine," he muttered, "but start talking fast. Who are you?" She met his gaze, unflinching. "Reyna." And this, he jerked his chin at the looming warship. Her expression hardened. "This is my tomb." The words lingered in the stale air. Max glanced at the automaton again, its lens unblinking, its servos winding like the tightening of a noose. He could feel the weight of centuries pressing down on him. This wasn't salvage. This was a crucible. He holstered the cutter, though his hand never strayed far from it. "All right, Reyna, show me what I've bought." Her laugh was a sharp exhale devoid of joy. "You've bought more than you can afford." The automaton's voice rose again, rattling through the hangar. 1 minute, 23 seconds. Reyna moved swiftly, pulling Max toward a side passage, half buried beneath collapsed scaffolding. She slipped through the narrow gap effortlessly. Max followed, scraping his shoulders against jagged metal. Inside, the air was colder, tinged with the copper bite of old blood. Max's lamp revealed claw marks etched into the walls, deep gouges made by something desperately trying to escape or trying to hold something in. "What the hell happened here?" he whispered. Reyna didn't answer immediately. Her steps were quick, sure, like someone who had walked these corridors countless times. Finally, she said, "The last crew. They thought they could restart the ship alone. They failed. Most didn't last a day." Max's stomach tightened. "And you?" Her voice was barely audible. "I was the only one left." The passage opened into a wider chamber, lined with consoles and darkened screens. Reyna placed a hand on one almost tenderly. This ship was designed for more than war. It was built to judge worthiness. Only those who act as a true crew, who trust, who sacrifice, can command it. Max let out a harsh laugh. "That's insane. Ships don't care about trust. They care about power cells and fuel." Reyna's gaze burned into his. "This one does." Another alarm wailed. The automaton's voice echoed through the walls, vibrating in his bones. 45 seconds. Max felt sweat trickle down his neck despite the chill. He turned to Reyna. "Then tell me what I'm supposed to do. How do I pass this damn test?" She shook her head. "You can't, not alone." The chamber trembled as another section of ceiling gave way. Dust and debris rained down, forcing Max to cover his head. He staggered back as a support beam crashed across the floor. Reyna grabbed his arm, yanking him clear of the collapse. "That's the point, human. Alone you die. Together, maybe you survive." The finality in her tone froze him more than the falling debris. The automaton's voice thundered again, closer now, its lens glowing brighter as it advanced into the chamber. 30 seconds. Reyna's grip tightened on his arm. "Make your choice. Stand with me or be judged alone. Max looked from her to the looming machine. His heart pounded in his ears, drowning out the alarms. $1. That was all it had taken to bring him here. $1 to buy not a hangar, but a fate. All right, he said hoarsely. Together. Reyna's eyes softened just slightly, though her expression remained grim. Then may the ship decide you're worth the gamble. The automaton halted, its sensor flickering. The countdown froze at 15. A grinding silence filled the chamber, broken only by the groaning of the ancient hull. For the first time since entering Hangar 17, Max wondered if perhaps this purchase had been not the bargain of a lifetime, but the most expensive mistake he would ever make. The silence after the countdown froze was worse than the machine's threats. Max could hear his own heartbeat, ragged and insistent, in his ears. The automaton stood motionless, its single eye glowing like a baleful star in the dark. Dust drifted down from the ceiling in lazy spirals, disturbed by nothing but the vibration of the ship itself. Reyna didn't let go of his arm. Her fingers were strong, callous, digging into his sleeve like talons. "This is only the beginning," she said quietly, her voice nearly lost in the cavernous chamber. "You've woken it." Max's jaw tightened. Woken what? The answer came not from Reyna, but from the ship itself. A deep metallic groan reverberated through the floor, shaking the chamber walls. It was a sound both mechanical and alive, as if the vessel exhaled after centuries of sleep. Warning lights flickered along the edges of the console, sputtering to life in staccato bursts of red. The automaton's voice distorted, repeating a phrase Max didn't understand. Initiating diagnostic. Unauthorized crew detected. Trial sequence commencing. Panels along the walls slid open, releasing a hiss of stale air. Somewhere deeper inside, the clanking of gears echoed, followed by a low hydraulic hiss. Max instinctively raised his cutter, but Reyna grabbed his wrist and forced the blade down. "Don't," she warned. "Every action you take is part of the test. Violence will be judged as hostility. And if I do nothing," Max asked, sweat stinging his eyes, "then you die faster." The floor beneath them shuddered. Panels retracted with a snap, revealing open shafts that plunged into darkness. Max stumbled back, narrowly avoiding one as it yawned open at his feet. A gust of stale air rushed upward from the abyss, carrying the acrid tang of chemicals long stagnant. Reyna moved with fluid precision, dragging him toward the only remaining strip of solid flooring. "Stay with me. Don't hesitate." Max's legs obeyed before his brain did, carrying him after her as the chamber rearranged itself. Entire sections of the floor dropped away, others tilted violently. A walkway extended from the far wall, splitting in two halfway across like the open jaws of some beast. "What the hell is happening?" Max shouted over the din of grinding machinery. "The ship is testing us." Reyna's voice was steady, calm, even in chaos. "It's deciding whether we act together or betray each other." Why would it care? Because it was built that way. She leapt across a widening gap and landed with feline grace, then turned and extended her hand. Max stared at it for a half-second too long. The ground beneath him shifted, metal shrieking as it began to retract. He cursed and lunged forward, grabbing her hand. Her grip was iron, pulling him across as the floor vanished into the chasm below. For a brief moment they were pressed together, her strength, the only thing keeping him from plummeting. Her eyes glowing faintly in the emergency lights locked onto his. "Now you understand," she whispered. "It doesn't want a captain. It wants a crew." Before Max could respond, a klaxon blared overhead. A vent cracked open, belching a hiss of vapor. His lungs burned instantly, the air thickening. He coughed, doubled over, tasting metal on his tongue. "Oxygen conservation protocol," Reyna said grimly. She pressed a cloth over her mouth, gesturing for him to do the same. "The ship is choking us to see how we respond." Max pressed his sleeve to his face, forcing slow breaths. His chest felt heavy, each inhalation weaker than the last. This is insane." "It's deliberate," she countered. "A single person would hoard the oxygen. A crew learns to share." She tugged him toward a pair of control panels positioned at opposite ends of the chamber. Both were dimly lit, their displays flashing sequences of colored lights. "Those panels," Reyna explained quickly, "must be activated simultaneously. If we're out of sync, the system interprets it as sabotage." Max staggered toward one, trying to steady his hands. The display was ancient, but still functional, glowing with faint green, red, and blue indicators. His lungs screamed for air. Raina reached her own panel across the chamber. "Follow my lead," she shouted, her voice muffled by the cloth at her mouth. The lights blinked in sequence, green-red, blue, green-yellow. Raina raised her hand, counted down with her fingers, then slammed the first button. Max mirrored her hitting green at the same time. The console beeped. The oxygen thickened further. Max's vision blurred. "Stay with me, Raina," barked her voice, cutting through the haze. He forced himself to focus. Red, blue, green, yellow. Each press drained what little strength remained, but somehow they matched perfectly. The consoles chirped in unison. A hiss of air filled the chamber, fresh oxygen flooding through hidden vents. Max collapsed to his knees, dragging in greedy gulps. His chest ached, but each breath cleared the fog from his mind. Across the chamber, Raina lowered her cloth, breathing with controlled, measured rhythm. She regarded him silently, her eyes unreadable. Trial 1 complete, the automaton intoned. Its single eye dimmed briefly, then brightened again. Preliminary cohesion established. Proceeding to next evaluation. Max laughed bitterly, still gasping. "So this thing it really does want us to play house." Raina's lips pressed into a thin line. "It wants more than that. It wants loyalty, sacrifice. It was built as a warship, but also as a crucible. Its creators feared betrayal from within. They programmed the ship to demand unity before it would obey." She stepped closer, kneeling beside him. Her expression softened, if only slightly. "You see now why I told you to leave." Max stared back at her. His chest still burned, but the fire in his veins was anger now. "Leave, I paid for this. My dollar bought me the biggest gamble of my life. I'm not walking away." Her gaze flickered with something he couldn't quite name. Respect, perhaps, or pity. "Then you'll die like the others, unless you find more than greed to keep you alive." The chamber around them groaned. Another section of ceiling collapsed, sending shards of metal crashing to the floor. Dust clouded the air, and through it Max saw the warship beyond looming larger now, as though it had shifted closer while they were distracted. Its hull glimmered faintly with lights that hadn't shone in centuries. Systems were awakening, stirred by their actions. Max rose shakily to his feet, cutter still clenched in his hand. "Then I'll give it what it wants. A crew." Raina's eyes widened slightly. "You don't understand. Trust isn't something you summon from thin air. It takes years, sacrifice, loss." "Maybe for you," Max shot back. "But for me, it starts now." The automaton's eye swiveled, fixing on him. "Crew designation incomplete. Additional personnel required." Raina turned toward the voice, her face pale. "No," she whispered. "Not again." "What does that mean?" Max demanded. Her silence was answer enough. A loud crash echoed from deeper within the ship, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Human footsteps. Max's grip tightened on his cutter. His gamble wasn't over. It had only just begun. The footsteps echoed through the collapsing chamber, uneven, hurried, desperate. Max's first thought was scavengers drawn by the noise and destruction. His second thought was worse. If the ship was testing him, then whoever came next might not be allies, but part of the trial itself. Raina's expression hardened. Her hand went instinctively to the embedded band at her wrist, the faint circuitry flickering as though sensing what approached. "They always come," she muttered. "Strays, survivors, foolish enough to think they can claim what isn't theirs." Max raised his cutter defensively, eyes scanning the dust-choked air. Shapes emerged, 3 figures stumbling into the chamber. The first was a broad-shouldered man, his uniform torn and stained with blood. He clutched his side where crimson seeped through crude bandages. Despite his injury, his posture carried the unmistakable edge of someone who had once enforced order, a soldier or security. The second was a young woman, lean and sharp-eyed, with a heavy toolkit strapped across her back. Her hands trembled, but her gaze darted everywhere, cataloging exits, equipment, threats. She moved like someone who had lived too long by her wits, fixing and salvaging to survive. The third was a boy, 16 maybe, wide eyes full of terror, clothes too big for his frame, every step betraying his lack of experience. He hovered near the others, trying and failing to look braver than he felt. Stay back! The wounded man barked, brandishing a makeshift weapon, just a length of pipe sharpened at the end. His voice was gravelly strained. We don't want trouble. Max kept his cutter raised. Then don't start any. The automaton in the corner swiveled its eye toward the newcomers. Its voice grated. Unauthorized personnel detected. Defensive protocol initiating. The boy gasped. The woman froze. The soldier cursed under his breath. Raina stepped forward sharply. Wait, she snapped. They're with us. Max shot her a glance. They're with us. You don't even know them. Her eyes locked onto his. Do you? The tension was suffocating. The automaton's lens brightened ominously, energy building in its servos. One wrong move and it would strike. Max made a decision. He deactivated his cutter with a hiss. They're with us, he said firmly, echoing Raina's words. If this ship wants a crew, then here's the start of one. The automaton paused. Its sensor dimmed slightly as though processing. Then without comment, it stepped back into standby mode. The silence afterward felt heavier than gunfire. The wounded man lowered his pipe slowly. You're insane human, he growled. That thing almost fried us. Max shrugged. It still might, but running won't help you, trust me. The woman adjusted her toolkit nervously. You're trying to restart the ship, aren't you? Max hesitated, then nodded. That's the idea. She gave a half smile, tired, but tinged with something like hope. Then you need me. I used to be an engineer, propulsion systems mostly. Raina's head snapped toward her. No. The woman frowned. No. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. Raina's voice was cold final. This ship doesn't want engineers. It doesn't want soldiers. It wants sacrifice. If you step into this, you won't walk out. The wounded man coughed violently, blood speckling his lips. Lady with station security purging the outer docks. We're dead out there anyway. Better a gamble than a slow execution. The boy said nothing. He just stared at Max, eyes wide, silently pleading for someone to tell him it would be okay. Max exhaled slowly. He turned to Raina. You said it yourself. Alone I die. Together maybe we live. This is our crew now. Her jaw clenched. For a moment she looked ready to argue, but the words never came. Instead she muttered, then let the trials claim what they will. The ship groaned again, machinery grinding in the depths. Warning lights strobed across the chamber. The floor beneath them vibrated, seams cracking open. The automaton's voice returned, crew trial commencing. Cohesion assessment level 2. The chamber wall slid apart, revealing new corridors branching in opposite directions. Steam hissed from ruptured vents. The air grew hotter, tinged with burning insulation. The wounded man staggered, nearly collapsing. The boy caught his arm. We'll help him, the boy said quickly, almost desperately, as though volunteering would shield him from judgment. The woman unclipped her toolkit. Just tell me what needs fixing. Max's gut twisted. He barely knew these people. Yet the ship demanded they act like a crew demanded trust where none existed. Raina seemed to read his thoughts. It will tear us apart, she said quietly. The tests are designed for that. Then we prove it wrong, Max replied. They moved as one into the corridor. The heat intensified, sweat slicking Max's brow. Ahead, flames flickered where conduits had ruptured, sparks showering the floor. A pool of coolant spread across the decking, bubbling where it met the fire. Raina barked orders like a soldier. Stay close. Step only where I step. The deck is unstable. Max followed her lead. The boy clung to the wounded man's side, helping him hobble forward. The woman skirted the coolant, her toolkit already open, scanning the damaged conduits. The automaton glided silently behind them, its eye glowing brighter with each step. Watching, judging. They reached a junction where 2 doors sealed off their path. Each had a manual override lever. Both glowed faintly red. Raina cursed. Simultaneous activation, 2 stations. One mistake and it purges us. Max glanced around. Then we split, you and me. She shook her head. No, you take one, she takes the other. The woman blinked. Me? Raina's tone was harsh but not unkind. If you are what you claim a mechanic, then prove it. The woman hesitated, then squared her shoulders. Name's Eliza. And fine, let's do this. Max moved to the left lever, Eliza to the right. Raina counted them down. 3, 2, 1. They pulled together. The levers resisted ancient mechanisms grinding. Metal groaned. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then the doors split open, releasing a rush of cooler air. The flames guttered as suppression systems hissed to life. Eliza leaned against the wall, panting but smiling faintly. Told you I was useful? Max grinned despite himself, noted. But the relief was short-lived. The deck beneath the wounded man buckled. He cried out as metal gave way, plunging him waist-deep into a collapsing seam. The boy screamed, grabbing at his arms, straining to pull him free. Sparks rained around them as conduits snapped loose. Max lunged forward, seizing the man's shoulders. The boy pulled too, their combined effort dragging him back onto solid ground. His face was ashen blood flowing freely now. Name, Max demanded, breathless. Turok, the man rasped. His grip tightened on Max's arm, surprisingly strong despite his condition. Security. Weapon systems. Or what's left of them. Reyna crouched beside him, her eyes flicking over his injuries with clinical precision. He won't last without treatment. Max met her gaze. Then we keep him alive until we find it. The ship shuddered violently. A klaxon blared. The automaton's voice boomed, trial assessment incomplete. Loyalty verification required. The floor ahead split open, revealing a drop into darkness. From the far side, another automaton emerged, larger, bulkier, bristling with weapons. Its sensors glowed a deep, threatening crimson. It raised an arm. Targeting beams painted Tarak's chest. Injured unit detected, it announced. Security liability. Recommend termination. The boy stepped in front of Tarak, instinctively, arms spread. No. Max's stomach lurched. The ship wasn't just testing their skills. It was testing their will to protect each other. Reyna's voice was tight with urgency. This is the trust trial. It wants to know if we'll sacrifice the weak. The combat automaton's weapon hummed, energy building. Max raised his cutter again, stepping forward. Then we give it an answer. The combat automaton's red sensors burned through the smoke-filled corridor, unflinching, mechanical. Its weapon system hummed louder, charging to lethal capacity. The targeting reticle remained fixed on Tarak's chest, the weakest, the injured. Stand aside, it intoned, voice flat, final warning. The boy Ren stood frozen in front of Tarak, his thin arms outstretched like a child trying to shield a mountain. His knees shook, but he didn't move aside. Max's instincts screamed at him. Fear clawed at his gut. Every logical thought told him to dive for cover. But something deeper, something stubbornly human, anchored him in place. He stepped up beside Ren, cutter raised, and barked at the machine. You want him? You go through us. The automaton processed this, gears clicking as if caught in thought. Then its voice grated, crew protection instinct, acknowledged. The humming stopped. Slowly the weapon arm lowered. Max let out a shaky breath. Ren sagged in relief. Tarak coughed, grimacing, but managed a strained smile. Didn't expect that to work, he rasped. Reyna stepped forward, eyes never leaving the automaton. It didn't work, she corrected grimly. It recognized intent. But the trial isn't over. As if to prove her point, the deck beneath them lurched violently. Entire sections of floor pulled away, retracting into the walls. The corridor transformed into a yawning chasm. Only narrow beams remained, stretching across the void like skeletal bridges. Zero gravity activated with a sudden jolt. Their stomachs flipped as they rose from the decking untethered. Tools and debris floated around them, shimmering in the dim light. Ren yelped, flailing until he grabbed onto Tarak's arm. Eliza's toolkit drifted upward, tools spilling like a metallic constellation. She swore, clawing after them. Max slammed his hand against a railing, steadying himself. What now? Reyna's voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed urgency. This is a coordination trial. The ship wants to see if we can move together, keep formation. Across that, Max gestured at the thin beam spanning the abyss. She nodded. Step only where I step. And do not let go of each other. If one falls, we all fail. Max looked at the others. Ren's face was pale, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. Eliza gritted her teeth, tools still drifting around her. Tarak wheezed, his grip on consciousness slipping. He wanted to scream at the ship, at whatever sadistic designer had crafted these trials. Instead, he pushed off the wall and drifted toward the first beam. Reyna went ahead, her movements controlled, practiced. She reached the beam, crouched and balanced with ease. Now you, she ordered. Max followed Boots, magnetizing faintly to the beam. It wobbled under his weight, every step threatening to pitch him into the abyss. His wrist lamp cast a shaky glow downward, illuminating nothing but endless darkness. Behind him, Eliza coaxed Ren forward, guiding his trembling hands onto the beam. Tarak leaned heavily on them both, his strength nearly gone. Halfway across, a sudden tremor rattled the structure. The beam shook violently. Ren screamed as his foot slipped his body, pitching sideways into open air. Without thinking, Max lunged, seizing the boy's wrist. Momentum dragged him half off the beam, too. His body dangled over the void, one hand clamped on Ren, the other desperately clutching the cutter jammed into a seam for leverage. "Don't let go!" Ren shrieked, tears glistening in the dim light. Max gritted his teeth, every muscle straining. His arms burned, his chest heaved. "I've got you, just don't move." Eliza scrambled forward, locking her harness to the beam. She grabbed Ren's other arm. On three, she shouted, "1, 2, pull." Together, they hauled Ren back onto the beam. Max collapsed beside him, gasping. His hands shook violently. Reyna's voice was sharp. "This is what it wants, to see if you'll risk yourself for each other. Then it's going to have a hell of a show." Max growled. They pressed onward. Each step tested their balance, their nerve. Ren clung to Max's side, trembling but determined. Eliza kept glancing at Tarak, whose breathing grew ragged. His weight dragged at her, but she refused to let go. When they finally reached the far side, the deck reassembled beneath their feet with a thunderous clang. Gravity returned, slamming them down hard. The automaton glided after them, its eye glowing brighter. Coordination trial complete. Cohesion increased. Next evaluation, endurance. Reyna stiffened. Endurance. The ship answered. The walls shuttered, panels sliding open to reveal a torrent of water gushing into the corridor. Within seconds, it was waist-deep, freezing cold, swirling with debris. Ren panicked, thrashing. Max seized his shoulders. "Calm down. Swim with it, not against it." Eliza fought to keep her toolkit above the rising flood. Tarak groaned, barely able to hold himself afloat. The current swept them down a twisting passage. Lights flickered overhead. Water thundered around them, slamming them into walls, dragging them apart. Max fought to keep Ren close, kicking furiously. He saw Reyna ahead, swimming with powerful strokes, her eyes locked on a hatch at the far end of the corridor. "This way," she shouted, voice muffled by the roar. They reached the hatch just as the water surged to the ceiling. Reyna gripped the manual wheel, straining to turn it. It wouldn't budge. Max slammed against it, adding his strength. The wheel groaned, slowly shifting. Together, they forced it open, and the water exploded into the next chamber, dragging them through. They tumbled onto the floor, coughing, choking, shivering. The automaton floated effortlessly through behind them, its voice unbroken by the chaos. Endurance confirmed, loyalty verification repeating. Before Max could catch his breath, a new figure appeared on the far side of the chamber. Another automaton, this one bulkier, armored, weaponized. Its sensors locked onto Tarak instantly. "Injured unit detected," it announced. "Crew cohesion risk. Termination required." Max staggered upright, fury boiling in his veins. "No, we're not sacrificing him." Eliza planted herself in front of Tarak. "You'll have to kill me first." Ren, trembling but resolute, stood beside her. His voice cracked but carried defiance. "All of us or none?" Reyna's expression softened for the first time. Something unspoken passed through her gaze, pain, pride, maybe both. She stepped forward, raising her wrist. Her embedded circuitry flared. "Command override," she said firmly. "Crew protects its own," authentication phrase. "Those who share the fear reach the end together." The combat automaton froze. Its sensors flickered. Then slowly its weapon arm retracted. Override accepted. Crew loyalty validated. Proceeding to final cohesion trial. The chamber groaned, machinery grinding deep within. The floor split apart, rearranging into a vast circular arena. Blast doors sealed shut. Red lights strobed. Reyna's face was grim. "This is it. The final test before the ship acknowledges us." Max wiped water from his eyes cutter, sparking weakly in his grip. He looked at his crew because that's what they were now, wasn't it? Broken, desperate, terrified, but still standing. "Then let's pass it," he said. The arena floor rumbled. Panels slid open. From the depths rose not one but three combat automatons heavier and more advanced than before. Their sensors glowed a deep, menacing crimson. Ren whispered, "We're dead." "No," Max growled, stepping forward. "Not while we're together." And the trial began. The three combat automatons advanced in unison, servos grinding their crimson sensors cutting through the arena haze. Their footsteps shook the deck plates, each impact a promise of violence. Ren whimpered, clutching at Eliza's sleeve. Tarak, pale and bloodied, forced himself upright against the wall pipe weapon, trembling in his hand. Eliza herself planted her feet, toolkit half open, as if she could jury-rig salvation out of nothing but wires and stubbornness. Max's knuckles whitened around his cutter. He had faced danger before cave-in scavenger raids collapsing stations. But this three machines designed for war against five exhausted, half-drowned survivors. The odds were a joke. Yet as he glanced at them, Ren's trembling courage, Eliza's fierce determination, Tarak's stubborn refusal to die, Reyna's cold fire, he realized something. Alone they were prey. Together they had already done the impossible. He lifted his cutter. "We fight as one." The automatons responded instantly. Their weapons charged the hum, resonating through the chamber like a predator's growl. Reyna stepped forward, circuitry in her wrists sparking to life. "Listen to me," she barked. "This isn't about killing them. It's about proving loyalty, proving we function as a crew." The first automaton lunged, swinging a metal arm toward Max. He ducked, sparks showering as the blow smashed into the wall. He rolled cutter, slashing across exposed hydraulics. The machine staggered but did not fall. Ren darted forward with a desperate cry, hurling a loose tool at the automaton's sensor. It clanged off useless, but the distraction bought Max an opening to strike again. The second automaton targeted Tarak weapon, locking onto his chest. Eliza screamed and threw herself in front of him, toolkit raised like a shield. The blast hit squarely, sending her crashing to the floor. Smoke rose from scorched metal, but she was alive. Tarak roared, staggering forward despite his injuries. He swung his pipe with all his strength, denting the automaton's sensor housing. Sparks erupted. "Enough," Reyna shouted. She strode into the center, raising her arm high. "Command override trial directive, crew unity through sacrifice. Authentication phrase. The crew protects its own." The automatons froze. Their weapons dimmed. For a moment, silence. Then the deck beneath Reyna cracked open, a yawning chasm opening beneath her feet. She dropped with a gasp. Reyna Max lunged, catching her arm. Her weight nearly dragged him in, but he held fast, gritting his teeth. Her eyes blazed into his. "This is it. The ship demands proof. Let me fall, and it accepts you. Save me, and it rejects us all." His muscles shook. Sweat poured down his face. The abyss below seemed endless. He thought of every failure, every loss. And then he thought of Ren's trembling courage, Eliza's stubborn fire, Tarak's bloody defiance, and Reyna fierce, broken, loyal in ways she barely admitted. His grip tightened. "No deal," he growled. With a roar, he hauled her up onto solid ground. The automatons processed silently. Then as one, they powered down, sinking back into the deck. Final cohesion trial passed. Crew authentication validated. The arena floor reassembled, sealing the chasm. The blast doors opened, revealing a corridor bathed in pale blue light. At its end loomed a massive sealed door, the bridge. Reyna rose shakily to her feet, brushing dust from her arms. Her gaze lingered on Max, unreadable. Then she nodded once. "You've bought us our chance. Now let's see if we can keep it." The bridge door towered over them, seamless, ancient, its surface scorched from countless failed attempts. Reyna placed her hand against it. "Crew authentication required. All members must be present." Max, Eliza, and Tarak joined her palms, pressed to cold metal. For a moment, nothing. Then the combat automaton they had first met glided forward, pressing its own arm against the door. Energy surged through the metal, glowing veins of light spreading outward. The door split down the center, retracting with a thunderous hiss. The bridge lay beyond a sweeping semicircle chamber, with a massive viewport gazing into the void. Dust clung to consoles, but displays flickered weakly as systems rebooted. Max stepped inside, off filling him. "Worth every cent of that dollar," he muttered. "Don't celebrate yet," Reyna warned. She moved to the central console, fingers flying across cracked controls. Full command transfer requires synchronized input. Navigation, engineering, weapons, medical, and command, all stations must be manned. Max frowned. We don't have the people. As if in response, the combat automaton strode to the weapons console, placing its arm upon the interface. Another unit entered, moving to engineering. Ren stared. It's help him. Reyna shook her head. No, it's filling the gap until we prove ourselves. But the ship will only accept full human crew. Eliza pulled Tarak toward engineering. He can handle weapons, she said firmly. I'll take engineering. I'll take medical, Ren blurted, surprising even himself. His hands trembled, but he forced himself to the console. Max moved to navigation, gripping the controls with determination. Reyna remained at command. On my mark, she ordered. 3, 2, 1, initialize. They pressed their consoles. Blue light pulsed outward, connecting each station. The ship hummed, awakening. Systems flickered from red to green. Then alarms blared. The main screen filled with a countdown. 300, 259, 258. What now? Max demanded. Reyna's face tightened. Emergency protocol. Without full authentication, the ship purges all life support. We have 3 minutes. Max cursed. We need Eliza and Tarak at their stations. Now. Tarak staggered forward, blood dripping from his bandages. I'm in, he gasped, slamming his hands onto the weapons console. Eliza followed, breathless, tools sparking as she reconnected circuits on the engineering station. The countdown ticked relentlessly. 145, 144. Ren focus, Reyna barked. Medical requires stabilization of life support. I don't know how, Ren stammered. You don't need to know, Max snapped. Just trust her voice. Do what she says. Ren swallowed hard, then nodded. His trembling fingers followed Reyna's rapid commands. Lights blinked green one by one. 30 seconds, Eliza cried. The ship shuddered violently. A support beam tore free, plummeting toward Ren. Tarak, with a roar, shoved the boy clear. The beam crashed down, crushing Tarak's console. Blood sprayed from his reopened wounds. No, Eliza screamed, rushing to him. The countdown froze at 0:05. The ship's voice intoned, crew sacrifice acknowledged. Authentication complete. Blue lights surged across the bridge. Consoles, powered fully, systems roared to life. The cracked viewport sealed itself as nanomaterials flowed across. Engines hummed, thrusters igniting. They had passed. Barely. Tarak slumped against Eliza, pale but smiling faintly. Told you. Worth the risk. Reyna exhaled slowly, her eyes glistening in a way Max had never seen. She whispered, We are a crew. The ship tore free of the dying station. The viewport filled with blue-white energy as the main drive ignited, propelling them into open space. Relief swept through them. For the first time, survival seemed possible. Then the main console flickered. A recorded message, degraded and full of static, played. An officer in an unfamiliar uniform appeared, their voice distorted. Protocol Echo, initiated. Command structure confirmed. Proceed to designated coordinates. Mission parameters unchanged. No return option available. The message cut out. A set of coordinates burned across the navigation display, deep space far beyond settled systems. Max's stomach sank. What the hell is Protocol Echo? Reyna's face had gone carefully blank. Too blank. The contingency mission. The reason this ship was built. Eliza frowned. Contingency for what? Reyna hesitated. For catastrophic failure. If Protocol Echo activates, it means the primary mission has failed. Failed how? Max pressed. Her gaze flicked to the viewport where stars stretched infinitely. Catastrophically. Ren's voice cracked. We can override it, right? Set our own course. Reyna shook her head. The ship is hardwired. It will only function if we follow those coordinates. Silence settled heavy as lead. They had escaped one prison only to be shackled to another. The hum of the engines grew louder as the ship angled toward the unknown. Max looked at each of them, Reyna, Eliza, Ren, even Tarak, bleeding but alive, and realized something chilling. He hadn't just bought a hangar for $1. He had bought a crew bound by trial and sacrifice. And with them a mission none of them understood, to face a threat greater than any they had imagined. The viewport filled with streaking stars as hyperspace engaged. The ship shuddered, then stabilized, plunging them into the endless dark. Raina's eyes met Max's across the console. Her voice was quiet, almost reverent. You bought this place for $1, she said, but the price of where it leads, that will be everything we are. And together they vanished into the unknown.